Hey, this is Raina Campbell, your Chief Dream Driver, and welcome to the No Parking Podcast, where through conversations and discussions with creators like yourself, we'll find interesting approaches to help you take your dreams out of park, put them in drive, and ride towards success. Hey, Dream Drivers, welcome to episode 129 of the Dreams and Drive podcast. And today our guest is Roeder, and she's the founder of Edgar, a social media automation tool designed to prevent status updates from going to waste. Edgar was actually a tool that I learned about from episode 33 guest Brianda Law. If you guys haven't listened to that episode, I definitely say go back and listen to it. But she talked about Edgar being something she used in her own business to help it grow. So I was excited when Laura's team reached out to me and we were able to make this episode happen. And on this episode, we're going to discuss why Laura decided to quit her job and become a freelancer, how you can land your first clients, how Laura discovered her niche early on in her career, how she was able to build a software company from scratch, and why she opted out of a freemium model for her business, especially because a lot of other social media tools do offer that. We also hone in on social media mistakes you want to avoid, how to win on each social media channel, and the challenges that Laura faced building her business. So definitely this episode is one that I know you guys will love and be excited about. Today's show notes are available at dreamsanddrive.com, and just click on episode 129. And please remember to follow us on social. We are Dreams and Drive across the board on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. And you can also use the hashtag Dreams and Drive when sharing as well. I love when you guys are posting on your Instagram story. So please keep sharing. I appreciate it. It helps other people find out about the show. And it's just also a great way to support and give back. So please keep doing that. If you are not subscribed to our channel already, wherever you're listening, whether it be Apple Podcasts, SoundCloud, Stitcher, TuneIn, Spotify, iHeart, please hit that subscribe button so that every new episode you are notified. And I am going to be extending our giveaway from last week. So if you weren't able to check out our giveaway with Nubian Heritage, please go to dreamsanddrive.com/win. That's dreamsanddrive.com/win to enter to win their Abyssinian and Chia Seed body wash and body lotion. I'm so happy that Nubian Heritage wanted to partner with us. So please go ahead and check it out and enter. Hope you guys enjoyed today's episode. Can't wait to hear what you think. Hi, Laura. Welcome to this episode of Dreams and Drive. I'm so excited to chat with you today.
Thank you. I'm happy to be here.
I love to start our interviews off just going back in time. I always think it's very interesting to see how we would describe ourselves as children. So if I had to say, what was the young Laura like? How would you answer that?
I'm an only child, so I think only children spend a lot of time alone. And I definitely spent a lot of time alone, a lot of time reading. But I always had a lot of friends, too. It's always come easily to make friends and have a lot of friends at school. So I guess a mix of social time and kind of being in my own little world, reading and writing stories and things like that.
What was the dream back then as a child?
I didn't really have like a really clear idea. I did think it sounded fancy to be a business lady. I remember I would see J. Crew catalogs and they'd have the suits and I'd be like, "Ooh, that's cool. You could be a business lady and wear a J. Crew suit." And I had a friend when I was a kid and she had some family in Florida and I grew up in Texas and we thought that sounded amazing that people lived on the beach in Florida. So I thought that sounded cool.
I always wondered about that just because, I'm from New Jersey and when you grow up on the coast and your access to the beach is so easy, you don't realize that, not everyone has that experience. You graduated from, what college did you graduate from again?
I went to the University of Texas, and that's also where I grew up in Austin, Texas.
Okay, and you got a degree in advertising. Mm-hmm. Did you think that you were going to go into advertisement? What was the thought post-college for you?
So the plan was to go into graphic design, and I knew that's what I wanted to do when I started college. I decided not to go to art school because a lot of art schools don't have the academic side. They only have the art side, and I wanted more than just the art side. And also I really wasn't interested in fine art. So I was only interested in design. And if you go to art school, you also spend a lot of time painting and sculpture and stuff like that. So advertising was meant to be a way. There was supposed to be a program that was more design oriented that didn't end up happening. But I always had design jobs in college and taught myself design through jobs and internships and just doing work on the side and stuff like that. So I definitely wanted to be a graphic designer, and that's what I did when I graduated. So post-college, I worked at a small ad agency and as a junior designer. And there were things that I liked about it and things that I didn't. I found it a little boring to just do design. I found that I was also really interested in the marketing side and the client strategy side. So I kind of thought maybe I should be an account executive, but then that didn't really sound great either. I kind of wanted to be able to do a mix of everything. And that was a big motivator for me in quitting that job to work for myself, because I thought, well, I could be a freelancer. If I did freelance design, then I would be able to do the design, but also do kind of the business and strategy side through my work with my clients.
Did you have any experience in being an entrepreneur or doing freelance before then?
No, no.
And so how was that? Like you just said, I'm going to quit my job and do my own thing. That's definitely like a big jump. What gave you the confidence to make that jump?
So it was a really big jump for me because most people freelance on the side first, which totally makes sense. That's a great idea. But I did not freelance on the side first at all. When I quit my job, I literally had no clients, and I had never gotten a client before, like nothing at all. So, I think I just sort of thought about, well, what's the worst case scenario? Because I was already looking around for other jobs, right? Or considering, and I had saved up a little money to get me through, if it took a few months for me to start earning money. So I thought, well, if this doesn't work and I can't earn any money, I'll just go get another job, which was the plan anyway, right? If I didn't like my job already. So that didn't seem like such a horrible scenario. I was young. I was, I guess 21 or 22. I didn't have a family to support or anything like that. As long as I could feed myself a can of beans, that's all the money I needed.
Do you remember how you went out and got your first few clients?
I went to networking events in Chicago. I was living in Chicago at the time. And also I was new to Chicago. I'd lived there for about a year, maybe 2 years at that point. And when I started, not only did I not have any clients, I never freelanced, I also didn't know any prospects because I didn't know any business owners, right? I was like a 22-year-old that works in an ad agency. I didn't know any business owners who might need to hire me. So I thought, okay, well, the people that are going to hire me are going to be businesses. So I need to find business owners. So where do business owners go? Well, I guess they go to like small business networking events. So I just looked up resources. I went to all the different chamber of commerce in Chicago. There's different chambers of commerce for all the different little neighborhoods. So I would just go to all the events. You don't have to join, by the way. They'll be like members free or non-members $5. I'm like, I'll just pay the $5. I want to pay $200 a year. So I would just go to the events, or there's different free resources out there for, Small Business Association or Women in Business and stuff like that. So just anything like that I could find, I would go to.
And do you remember what it was like actually getting that first client? Maybe you could tell us a story or what you pitched. How was that whole negotiation, contract, pricing, whatever it was?
Yeah. Well, I think my very first client was a referral from my old job. It was like a friend of the people who ran my old job, and she needed some work done for her business. I think that was my very first client. And I didn't know how to do anything. I knew I was supposed to write a proposal, but I didn't know exactly what a proposal was. And that was another great thing about going to the small business events. Not only did I meet potential clients, but I met mentors as well, right? I met people who were running successful small businesses, and some of them were just amazing to me. There's a woman named Adrienne that's still a friend to this day. She ran a brick and mortar lingerie store in the suburbs of Chicago. So, totally different type of business, but she was a really experienced business owner, and
very niche too.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. She explained kind of how the finances work, what a proposal is, what to put in it. And I read a ton of books. The internet was around at this point, so you could Google things. They're not as the huge amount of resources that are online now for small business owners, but still a lot. You could still Google what you needed to know. So I would just Google and figure it out. I would spend all this time writing a proposal, and then I would send it to them. And then I remember going to these meetings because it was in Chicago. So I'd have to ride the bus, and it would be snowing and ice. And, sometimes they were far away. So I'd be riding the bus and, walking in my heels and my fancy outfit to this meeting being like, oh, I hope they say yes to the proposal that I sent.
Was this just for graphic design at this point, or had you already transitioned into doing a lot of social media marketing work as well?
At this point, it was graphic design and web design. So I would also make websites for clients.
So when did you realize that there was an opportunity for you to really get into this new space of social media marketing?
So I started my freelance business, I guess it was in 2007. And in 2008 is when Twitter came out. Shortly thereafter, Facebook fan pages. People started to be interested in how you could use Facebook for a business, how you could use Twitter for a business. So I was on these platforms just for fun, just chatting with people. And they were really compelling and really mysterious to my clients, right? So I would make a website for my clients. I would talk to them about how to get traffic to their website. I mean, in retrospect, I was doing a lot of online marketing stuff. At the time, I just thought, well, if you make a website for someone, surely you should help them get traffic to it, and you should tell them what should be on it and how to structure it. And I just thought that was part of making a website. I didn't know that often you might hire a designer and they wouldn't help you with any of that stuff. I just didn't know what anyone else did. So I was already kind of helping my clients with really their online marketing strategy. I mean, just for free, just because I was doing a website for them. And as social media started to become more and more well-known, people kept saying to me, I would pay you just to tell me how Twitter works, right? I would pay you just to explain social media to me. You could train people in doing that. And I thought, that sounds like the easiest job in the whole world if someone would pay me to tell them how social media works. So that's what I started doing, and that's how I got into the social media world.
I think you spent almost 7 years really focusing in on that. What do you think was the biggest key to your growth and just building the brand at that point and during those years?
I mean, I think it's just always making incremental progress, right? I really love this quote and this idea of let me get it right. Have you lived 10 years or have you lived 1 year 10 times? Because it can be so easy to just kind of have the same experiences in our life, right? And it can be very easy when you run a business. You get your business to a certain point. When I started, my goal, I was making about $30,000 a year at my job. So I was like, I want to replace that $30,000 a year as a freelancer. And you might achieve a goal like that, and you might kind of stay there, right? Because you figured out how to do it. It's enough to get by. It's very easy to get stuck in that same year 10 times without kind of realizing you're doing it. So something that I always try to be aware of is, am I going through new problems? Am I going through new experiences? Things like hiring people, right? I started out with just part-time assistant. Eventually I moved to hiring a full-time employee and then several full-time employees. And then, at my company now, of course, we have true team leaders that are hiring people without me. All of that has been a very gradual transition of just how can I keep learning and growing.
I love that. And I think that's something that we all can do in our own businesses. Because I know even with Dreams and Drive, I was just telling myself, sometimes you can get complacent and you can get comfortable with what you're at. If it's there's that quote, if it's not broke, don't fix it. Well, it's not. Yeah, I think that's the quote. And a lot of times as business owners, as creatives, as entrepreneurs, you can get pretty comfortable and you're not really pushing yourself to figure out what more can you do. So thinking about your own evolution, there became a point, and I read this in your past interviews that you've done, which was kind of the impetus and the inspiration for starting Edgar,
you realized, well, tell us what was the inspiration behind Edgar and how this led you to this new opportunity that you in your life.
So the social media business evolved into an online training business where I was teaching classes to entrepreneurs about how to leverage social media marketing. So I was teaching people the system of how to leverage their updates over and over again. So instead of coming up with 5 new social media updates every day for the rest of time, create a library of updates that you can keep cycling through over and over again, because a tiny percentage of the people that follow you see any one update anyway. It doesn't make sense to just use it once and then throw it away. So this is what I was doing. This is what I was teaching other people to do. At the time, I had this really complicated spreadsheet where you had your different categories and different columns, and you'd have to color code it to mark off what you'd used and what you hadn't used, and you had to copy and paste it from the spreadsheet into the social media tool. You just couldn't have an image because it's really hard to keep images in spreadsheets. It was really cumbersome. So my husband, Chris, was a huge part of the story because he's a software developer, and I built websites, but I don't know how to build software. So I was just kind of complaining to him about this. Like, why can't the social media tool store the social media updates? It's so weird that I have to have a library and a spreadsheet. And Chris was just like, well, I could build a tool that does that. So I'm like, great.
Can I get something like that?
Yeah. So I'm like, let's do it. And that's really where Edgar came from. So it's software that was just doing what I was teaching people to do manually. And, Edgar is my first software company. It's a business model that I've been interested in for a long time, but not being a developer myself, I wasn't really sure how I would get started. So then it itself, I definitely felt like, okay, let's go for this. I think people will really find this valuable because people were paying money to learn the system, and then they were actually using the system because it actually worked really well.
Yeah, and just thinking about what Edgar does, I feel like it just makes people's lives so much easier.
Mm-hmm.
If you have a solution to a problem, that's definitely something that can bite. But before we get into just how you were able to build and grow that, was it as hard? You would think no one else had really been doing this, right? Was the actual practical part of creating this software hard, or was it something that people just didn't think about doing?
No, and it wasn't hard. And I mean, in general, if you have the skills to build software, you can build software, right? I mean, some of it is more complex than others, but Edgar's built on Ruby on Rails. If you know Ruby on Rails, you can build a tool like Edgar. I mean, obviously ours, we've improved and refined over the years and stuff like that. But it wasn't hard to build. It's just sort of a different paradigm and a different workflow to how the other tools that existed at the time were approaching social.
And one of the things I really liked about Edgar, or just about the story of Edgar, is that you guys decided to opt out of a freemium model. So if you think about a lot of other social media tools, you're allowed to use it for free, and then you can have access to a limited amount of tools that it provides. Why did you decide not to go that freemium route and make it paid from upfront?
So I think something that a lot of business owners forget is just really measuring, can I afford to do this? And I mean, one of the reasons that we haven't and we don't is because we're a small bootstrap business. We can't afford to have a free plan, right? Because a free plan, you are still paying a lot of cost, right? You're paying the cost of the actual server and all that stuff. You're also paying customer service costs to keep everybody happy. It's free for the customer. It's certainly not free for the business. And I think a lot of people just sort of look at what others are doing and they think, oh, we have to have a free plan, or maybe even like marketing strategies that others are doing, right? They might think, oh, I have to be doing like Instagram live stories, or Instagram live and Instagram stories. And it's like, well, maybe you don't have time to do that. Maybe you're a one-person business, and you can't afford to put in that time. So that was definitely one reason why we didn't do it. Also, we wanted to be really clear that we are a business tool. So the thing about social media, you use it for your business. You also use it for fun. You use it for your personal life to connect with people. Maybe you have like some side projects or hobby projects that you talk about or promote on social. And we really wanted to send a clear message with our pricing and our plans. We are really a marketing tool for a small business.
So you were very clear in the beginning for who you were targeting. And that's something I love that you said that, because a lot of times, especially a lot of people listen to this podcast, they're either just starting out or they're trying to refine their niche and their audience. And not being clear on who you're targeting can really set you back, especially if your goal is to make money, right?
Right.
That's what a business is.
Yeah, and I think you're right that people get scared because they think, oh, well, I don't want to turn anyone down, right? But if you don't have any specificity, then just no one knows that it's for them, right? Because if you look at a site and you can't tell if it's for a small business or if it's for a huge corporation, you're like, oh, is this for a huge corporation? Maybe it's going to be too expensive. Maybe they're going to make it really complicated to buy. Like I'm just going to avoid this whole thing. And also, people get so worried about excluding people, but like consumers also can pick out if something's for them, even if the copy is slightly different, right? I mean, we know this as women. Some products target us as women specifically. Some don't. Like women don't not buy things because it doesn't say for women on the package, right? Like consumers are smart. They can figure out if something's a good match for them, even if you don't have their picture on the homepage, because you can't have everyone's picture on the homepage. So also like, don't worry about excluding people so much that people are going to think, oh, because it didn't say realtor right on the homepage, then it's not for realtors. If it's a good match for them, they can figure it out.
What do you think was the key to getting more people to find out about Edgar? Because before, so I think episode 33 guest, Brianda Law, she was the one who told me originally about Edgar and just put me onto it. I'm not a user of the platform as of yet, but it's definitely something that I've been looking into. Like, why do you think that the platform caught on so quickly and you were able to build?
Well, I mean, the story that you just shared is very, very common for us. Word of mouth has been really huge because people have a good experience with the tool, right? It saves them a lot of time. It allows them to spend their time on social in a different way where they're really interacting and having fun with people instead of doing all the grunt work. So word of mouth is definitely a huge, huge driver for us. We're also really big on content marketing, on blogging, on sharing materials that other people can share that are really useful for our audience.
So you segued us into what I wanted to talk about now is the whole idea of social media marketing, because this is what, Edgar is all about, being effective and being efficient and driving results. What do you think is the biggest mistake that a lot of creatives and lifestyle entrepreneurs specifically make when it comes to how they run their social media or how they view social media?
Yeah, I mean, I see a lot of people get burnt out because they do it all or nothing. I mean, kind of like I was just referring to with the Instagram stories, right? There can be a lot of pressure now to create just so much content and be everywhere. And people will often jump on the bandwagon, right? Where they're like, I'm going to go all in on Pinterest and I'm going to spend tons of time on Pinterest. Oh, but I have to be on Instagram too. Oh, but I have to be on Twitter too and Facebook too. And especially when you're doing it all manually, which a lot of people do, meaning, you're not using an automation tool like Edgar, you're on there live, posting multiple times a day. It just eats up your entire day. So people do it for a few weeks and then they kind of look around and they're like, oh my God, I haven't gotten anything done. This was a huge waste of time. And they regret the whole thing and then they give up on it.
You would recommend that you really need to be specific about the platforms that you're targeting.
Yeah, you need to have a game plan of what you actually have the bandwidth for. And also like use Edgar, use another tool, like use something that's going to make your life a little easier, because there's just no reason you need to be on live posting all day. And I think it's good to establish a rhythm in one place, right? Like maybe you do decide that Instagram for your business is going to be the best channel. I mean, Instagram, by the way, is very tricky because it's really hard to drive traffic from Instagram because you can't have links in your posts, right? It's a really weird thing.
You were talking about Instagram and how it's hard to direct traffic, right?
Right. Yeah. So on Instagram, you can't put a link in your post, which is really unfortunate. And obviously on Twitter, on Facebook, on Pinterest, links are a huge part of it. I mean, in Pinterest, of people, clicking through the image to go back to the original source, which I think people do a lot. So, you really have to be aware as a marketer of these platforms, right? And I think that's where social gets weird, because I use Facebook to run ads for my business. I also use it to see the cute new picture of my nephew, right? I do both of those things on Facebook. And I think sometimes people get a little confused and they just sort of do more of the social stuff thinking it'll help their business, and don't really stop and think, okay, I need to use this strategically to drive traffic. What's the best way to do that?
Can you, and you don't have to go into the specific details, but think about a way that you've used social to drive business for Edgar specifically. Could you walk us through maybe a mini campaign that you did on one of the platforms that drove a lot of growth for your business, or just awareness, whatever your end goal was?
Yeah. So, I mean, there's definitely a few different ways to look at it. I mean, the most simple and also kind of most important way to look at it on an ongoing basis is that social is a tool to drive traffic, and then you convert that traffic on your website. So when people are on your site, they need to have a system from, visiting the site to buying from you. So if you're e-commerce, maybe that's exploring your products. Maybe you have the little pop-up with the coupon. If you're a consultant, maybe you're encouraging them to set up an exploratory call with you, or to download some materials to get to know you better. Whatever that is, that sales process happens on your website. What you want to be doing on social is driving people to that website, and also forming those relationships so they have that higher level of trust with you. So I think what can get a little confused is that social media is usually, not always, but usually not where the actual sale happens. You're not people aren't usually buying directly from Twitter. I mean, there are exceptions to this, maybe in a Facebook ad where you're using that as the last step, but then people already know about you. Maybe you're retargeting them and encouraging them to buy, but they've already heard of your product. You're usually not going to just hear of a product for the first time on a Facebook ad, click on it, buy it, all in that same interaction, And we know that we don't do this as buyers, but sometimes we get disappointed when people don't do that with our website. We get a little disappointed if they don't buy right away, but it takes months of exploration usually before people buy, and they'll visit your sites, and they'll come back, and they'll visit you on social, and they'll leave and come back and then open something from your newsletter. It's a really complex process. So the best thing you can do from social is just every day, day in and day out, be driving traffic to your website. And it's also important to drive traffic to those parts of your sales funnel specifically. So, if you have an opt-in where you're collecting email addresses, post regular messages to social media to direct people to that opt-in, which often people miss. Often they're just sharing their blog posts and not also sharing, here's what I sell, here's how you can get in touch with me, kind of sharing more about their business.
That is that's definitely something that I think a lot of business owners know, but don't actually think about. Social media should be about driving traffic and not about selling. And I think sometimes people try to make the sell all the time and not really build the relationship that drives traffic. I love that you said that. And let's go through a little exercise then. So Twitter, right? Let's say someone has I'm just thinking off the top of my head, a jewelry company, right? The jewelry company sells necklaces for dogs, right? So if you were this company, the social media manager, what's one thing you would post, a social media post to drive traffic? Or what kind of opt-in would you suggest to have to then use social media to drive traffic to?
Yeah, I mean, so in this case, it always seems easier for other people's businesses. I would post adorable pictures of dogs wearing the beautiful necklaces, and then that's going to link back to the individual items, which, is something else that people can sort of overlook. Sometimes we overlook the basics of okay, if you sell 30 necklaces, have a picture of each necklace that goes on rotation in your social media, right? So that people can see what you sell. Showing those images that are share-worthy, that link back to those individual product pages with the necklaces. And then, for e-commerce, again, keeping it really simple, a great opt-in is often just that coupon. If you go to all the big retailers now, they always have the 10 to 20% off your first purchase when you sign up for the email list. That's a great, don't reinvent the wheel, just do that, So you can send out messages on Twitter saying, sign up for our email list to get 20% off your first purchase. Just run that every so often. And that's the kind of thing that Edgar puts on autopilot. If you're not using Edgar, it's really hard to just have a system for saying, okay, I want to make sure that I'm sending that message once a week. With Edgar, you just put it in the library and it just goes once a week automatically. Telling people about the coupon code, showing people the merchandise.
And what about if you're a service, if you are a consultant, even when you were doing your social media strategy work and you had courses and online guides, what was a really good growth strategy or social media strategy that you used to help drive growth?
So for consultants, it's more about letting people know who you are, how you work, what you believe in, how you work with your clients. I think we often forget that when people buy, they are making this huge guess because they won't have experienced our actual work yet, right? The best they can do is kind of view materials around the work. If you're hiring a CPA for your business, there's no way for you to know what the process of them doing your taxes is like before you actually pay them to do your taxes, right? That's just how it is. Yeah. So the way a CPA can get people more comfortable with hiring them is to write a lot of blog posts about, answering frequently asked questions, talking about their point of view on this tax strategy. And the thing is, for our own business, we often think well, why do I have to write a blog post? Why can't I just do the taxes, right? Why do I have to blog about doing the taxes? I'm great at doing the taxes. I'll do a great job for them. But our prospects have no way of knowing what kind of job we'll do. And in fact, they're deciding what kind of job we'll do based on our blog posts, not on our client work, because they can't see our client work. No matter how great it is, doesn't matter to prospects that they can't see it. What they can see is what you wrote on your blog. So, and also for so many service professionals, this can be really easy because most of your competitors are just doing nothing. When you pick a dentist, you're looking at online reviews. A lot of places don't have very many. Usually a dentist website has absolutely nothing on it. If you found a dentist and it had friendly pictures of them and their family, they had a few blog posts that, were super boring, right? How to keep your teeth clean, but they sounded sort of friendly and likable in the blog post. You're going to choose that dentist just because they gave you something to go on, as opposed to the person where they don't have a website and you don't really know anything about them. So, I think that's the good news for a lot of businesses is the bar is still really low. A lot of your competitors just aren't doing any of this stuff at all.
Oh my gosh. Laura, I have to tell you this. I have this brilliant idea. I don't care. I don't mind sharing it because whatever. But I always thought, because I live in a small town, right? And we have this street called Main Street, but there's a lot of local small businesses. And so many, some of the restaurants are really good, right? And I thought, why aren't these restaurant owners, trying to, collect, people's emails when they buy and then send them coupons or send them reminders about the daily special or something like that. But I even thought about, the beauty supply stores in my neighborhood. Why aren't they building a list and, doing different offers and just being creative? So there really is, if you're able to stand out and really use social media and use online marketing strategically, but at the same time you're helping your audience, you can definitely grow. And there's such a great opportunity for that as well.
Yes. You're so right. I know it's always frustrating when you love a business and you're no, do an email list so you won't close because your food is really good and I want you to stay open.
That's how I feel. And it's hard because I remember one time in the beginning when I actually was trying to execute on this idea, I went there and it was hard to make the sell when they didn't even know what social media was. They were like, what? We don't need that. People just come in. I'm like, okay. And it's really hard. And as a I think that's when back in the day, like maybe 3 years ago, when I was doing a lot of social media consulting and marketing consulting, I kind of gave up because I felt like it was hard to educate your ideal audience when they didn't know what they didn't know, you know?
Right. Yeah. I mean, that's always a catch-22. You have to sell to people who are already interested and already knowledgeable. I mean, this is definitely something I found as a web designer, because when I was doing design, there were still a lot of businesses that didn't have websites. I mean, especially restaurants. I mean, there's still restaurants that don't have websites. And I thought, oh, sweet. They're going to want a website, right? They don't have a website. I'll sell them a website. And actually that was not the case at all. If they didn't have a website, it's because they didn't see the value in it. Actually, the people that already had a website, they were the good customers because they were already sold on the idea of it.
Mm-hmm. You are so right on that. But as we wind down, Laura, I just want to say, just when looking up all the accomplishments that Edgar has been able to, Edgar has had over the past few years, I think one of the biggest things, especially as being a small business owner, is you guys have been able to have $4 million in annual recurring revenue. Mm-hmm. That's a great feat, especially for a lot of us dream drivers listening in who one day want to be at that part or at that level in our business. What advice would you have to that? I guess you started off as a solo. Well, I don't want to put words in your mouth, but were you always like a small business? Were you always small business, or what am I saying? I don't know why I'm mixing this up. I'm definitely gonna have to edit it. Basically, what I'm trying to say is, was it your goal to keep Edgar small from the beginning?
Well, so I mean, yeah, I don't know if you think that. To me, the team still is small. Do you think the team is small or big now?
No, I think you're small. I don't see you guys trying to be like the next Facebook. You know
right.
what I mean?
You're right. Yes, you're totally right. Yeah. So I don't have a desire to have a publicly traded company, and with thousands of employees. That definitely does not sound fun to me. It's fun to grow, but yes, I like to remain small. I like to stretch ourselves to see how much we can accomplish with a relatively small team and still maintain that feel of everyone knowing each other. So yeah, that's very appealing to me.
Why do you think you were able to keep customers happy? So you guys have been able to grow every year, and like what was the key to getting to that $4 million mark for you?
Well, I mean, so customer service is a huge priority for us. Our head of customer service, Christina Quinones, deserves all credit for all policies that we have here. But we've always felt like, in the age of online reviews, one angry customer can really do a lot of damage to you online, right? You really don't want anyone who's pissed off at your business, because you never know who's going to make it their life's mission to just go crazy on the internet writing bad things about you. And obviously there's only so much of that you can control. If someone decides they want to do that, they'll do it. But we're just like, the single dollar amount for any one customer is not worth them possibly being pissed off. I mean, even if they just tell their friends too, right? Even if they don't go crazy writing a bunch of blog posts about it. So I'm always so surprised when businesses aren't super generous to their customers. Like, if anything goes wrong with us, we're like, there's some sort of technical problem that causes you problems with the software, we're always like, have a month free. Just like, we're very proactive in making sure that people are happy and are having a good experience. And especially being a business that's reoccurring, right? People pay us every month or every year to keep the software going. It makes financial sense for us to keep you happy, right? Because then you're going to keep paying for the tool and referring friends. So I'm a huge believer in, spend a little extra money to make sure that you're providing the best customer service. We do a lot of training for our customer service team, making sure that they're not just answering your question, but kind of also looking at, okay, what's the underlying issue, trying to anticipate, are you going to have a follow-up question? Is there something else that you're really asking, but you don't know the right words to ask? We really look beyond the surface with every email that we get, because the way we think of it is like, you don't want to spend your time writing us an email. You're a busy entrepreneur. If you wrote us an email, unless it's just an email to say how much you love us, which, we do get those sometimes. But if you're writing in with any sort of question or problem, like, you've taken time out of your day that you'd rather not take, right? You'd rather just be able to figure out the answer. So we're really, really respectful of that time. We don't want to keep you hanging. We don't want to make you do a bunch of back and forth. We just want to get everything resolved and set up for you as fast as we can.
And that's why I was just thinking that's why it pays to not have a freemium model, because if you're servicing people who aren't paying you, then you're just losing even more money.
Exactly, right? Then you're taking time away from the customers that are paying you, and we want to just be able to give them our best.
What was a big challenge that you and your team at Edgar had to face, and how did you work through that?
I mean, so we're in a constantly changing space. So there's challenges all the time. We often don't get any kind of heads up when one of our platforms, so the platforms that we work on are Twitter, Facebook, and LinkedIn, we don't get any kind of heads up when they change.
I always wondered, like with Twitter, when they changed the character limit, was that something that you guys had to just be on the pulse of and change your back end?
Yes.
Okay.
So like the good part is we obviously have we stay really connected to that stuff. I mean, not only does our product team need to build it, like we blog about that stuff a lot. So we always want to be kind of ahead of what's coming. But yeah, when Twitter first rolled out 280 characters, like the first day it was public was the first day that we knew about it. And as soon as it was introduced to a few people, we started building that in the background because we knew there was a good chance that it would get rolled out to everyone. So it could have happened that we would have built it and they would have said, we're not doing this, and we would have just wasted our time. That can happen. Or, another challenge for us. So Instagram doesn't let you post with a third-party tool. You can kind of queue up your content. So with a third-party tool, you can say, okay, I want to post this image and this text, but then you have to go into your phone and actually hit the post button when you want to post. And our whole idea with Edgar is saving you that step, that you can just load up your library, that Edgar does all the posting for you, that you don't have to check in on it. So Instagram has been really challenging for us because we don't have Instagram on Edgar because it kind of goes against everything we promise you with Edgar, right? If we had Instagram, you'd have to go to your phone, not just your computer, but pull out your phone and hit a button every time you wanted to post live. And like, we can make it a little easier, but you'd still have to be live on there several times a day. So we've just decided, obviously a lot of our customers use Instagram. You can use another tool or you can just do it manually. Like, we're not going to have Instagram and Edgar. And that's a difficult decision because our customers are asking for it, but we're just not able to do it in a way that we really feel would serve them the best. So, I mean, stuff like that comes up all the time.
What do you think you've learned about your ability as a leader, like over these past years? Like, what's something that you're really proud about your own growth story?
I mean, seeing the team that we have now is definitely the thing that makes me the most proud.
What about the team?
I mean, one, the people that have been with me from the beginning of Edgar, because our team is a mix of people that have come from other software startups and a mix of people that haven't. So a lot of people on our team are like me, and this is the first software company that they've worked at. And we've all just figured it out together over the past 3.5 years as we've gone along. And it's really cool, seeing their growth, going from someone who's never worked in software before or someone who's never managed a technology company to now people who are running larger teams, who, know how to make all these decisions, who understand all the intricacies of a software business and a subscription software business, just thinking back to where they were before this business started. And now all they have on their resume, all they have under their belt, all the experiences that they can have in their career now, thanks to this time at Edgar, is just really cool.
That is amazing. That's definitely something that I hope to have one day as I build out the Dreams and Drive team. But on the whole idea of teamwork, I know that a lot of our listeners who are building teams right now, what are some resources that you would give or you would suggest entrepreneurs, especially those within the creative and lifestyle realm? What type of stuff should we be reading? What type of tools would you recommend we check out? Your favorite?
Read the Meet Edgar blog. It's a great one to start with. But really, so something we kind of specialize in on our blog is explaining all these changes that are happening with social. We ran a post today about like, should you be using 280 characters? Should you be keeping your tweets shorter? You know, what can you do with this new format? So that's something that people find really valuable is like, okay, there was this change in the Facebook algorithm or in Twitter or whatever. Like, what does this mean for a creative business? What does this mean for a small business? As someone who doesn't have a social media team to figure all this stuff out, how can I use it? So that's a great resource. What other blogs do I like to read? I mean, I read a lot of software
stuff.
Tell
us about it. I'm such a big proponent of it. Even if you're creative, you still need to be getting your hands dirty in other industries as well. Like, I love reading stuff that I don't know about, like from like software to all that.
Yeah. So I love the Groove blog. If you search for Groove HQ, it's a help desk tool, and they publish I think it's called Startup Success Blog or Startup Journey, where it's just like all behind the scenes stuff in their business. So that's really great. There's a blog called First Round Review. That's like tech startups that has really great articles too, just all about different aspects of running a business.
What keeps you going when you feel like giving up, Laura? I know that this journey is not always, it's not always marshmallows and M&Ms all the time. I was trying to think of the right thing to say. The first thing that came to mind, like, what's the thing that keeps you going on those days when you're just like, this is too much for me?
I mean, one, like, I'm a huge believer in giving yourself a break, and creating from the right headspace. Like, if you're having one of those days where just like everything sucks, like nothing's going right, like, go take a nap. You know what I mean? Like, you're not going to be able to create anything positive out of that. Obviously, we don't always have that luxury. Sometimes you have the client meeting scheduled or whatever it is that you have to show up for. And in those cases, I really think it's always helpful to remember that everything's a choice, right? I mean, this is something I like to think about a lot in my life, that anything that I've created in my life is a choice that I have, and I can choose something different, right? So it's like, if you're sick of the stresses of running a business, like, well, no one made me run a business. Like, I'm choosing to do this. No one made me live where I live or work with the people that I work with or have a kid, right? Like, I'm a mom, like, that's stressful sometimes. Like, well, that was my choice.
Give the kid back. Can't give the kid back.
I decided that. So I think it's just good to remind yourself when you're feeling kind of like cranky and pouty of like, oh, why is all this stuff going on? It's like, you know what? This is what I chose. It doesn't have to be this way. And I chose this for a reason. And this probably is what I want, even if I don't want it today.
That's a good way to think about it. Let's go into our lightning round, Laura. So at this part of the interview, I'm going to give you a prompt, and I want you to tell me the first word that comes to mind. And remember, we're sticking with our whole dreams and drive metaphor, okay?
Okay.
The first word is park.
Stuck.
Reverse.
Rethinking something that you've done. Maybe you should do it a different way.
Neutral.
Complacency, like you said earlier.
Drive.
Forward progress.
And if you want to be a dream driver, you have to have your keys to success. So tell me 3 things that you think every dream driver needs in their toolkit before they hit the road.
Focus. Be deliberate about how you spend your time. Another key is not doing it alone, whether it's listening to this podcast. I think that's a great place to start, but hopefully you're going beyond just listening and talking to other people. I mean, all my friends in business have been so valuable to me. And, I think when people talk about mentors, there's often this idea of like a famous person or someone really well known. But I've had so many mentors that aren't, they don't have $100 million businesses, right? They're just smart people that I admire, that have had a lot to teach me, like wherever they are on the journey. So I think surrounding yourself with others that you can complain to and talk to and rely on is really key. And the third one is to know what you want, and do this for yourself. Like you were asking me about how I don't want to have a huge team, What's so cool about running your own business is the freedom that you get to do it your way. And it's so easy to get stuck in these ideas of how things are supposed to look, or how things have to be done, or I have to work 80 hours a week to make it work, which I am not a believer in at all. So yeah, just remembering like that you're doing this for that freedom and that creative control. So keep that in mind as a goal. Don't lose that.
Thank you so much, Laura. This whole conversation has been so fantastic. Can you tell our dream drivers where they can find you and learn more about Edgar online?
Yeah, so you can find Edgar at meetedgar.com, meet Edgar everywhere on social media. You can find me on Twitter at LKR.
How did you get that? Were you like one of the first? You would think that people that's your initials, right?
Yeah. I was early. I was an early Twitter user.
Thank you so much, Laura. This has been amazing.
Thank you.
All right, so that's a wrap for episode 129 with Laura Roeder. I hope that you enjoyed hearing her dream driving story as well as her keys to success. And if you like what you heard today, please share this with a friend. And there are lots of ways that you can share. My favorite way to share right now is when you guys repost on Instagram stories. So just take a screenshot of you listening to this and repost on Instagram stories. Tag us at Dreams and Drive and use the hashtag Dreams and Drive. And I'll appreciate you guys forever. You can also email it, Facebook it, tweet it, text it to a friend as well. Our show notes are available at dreamsanddrive.com. We have a lot of clickables and links to the resources mentioned in today's episode there. I also urge you guys, if you haven't already subscribed to us, make sure you subscribe to us, Apple Podcasts, SoundCloud, Stitcher, wherever. Please, please, please subscribe so that you get notified every time we have a new episode. And I haven't talked about our online newsletter in a while, but I am getting back to regularly sending out weekly newsletter updates with resources and just some tips that can really help you get through the week. So if you want to join our online newsletter, just go to dreamsanddrive.com/join. That's dreamsanddrive.com/join. Keep dreaming and keep driving. We'll chat again in episode 130. Bye, guys.